Hello and welcome to the video. 2019 already. Thank you for all the help and support, great comments and interaction on the channel over 2018. Looking out to 2019, I've already got lots of things here and lists of things that I would like to try, and I want to kind of talk about that and also ask for some advice and input on things you'd like to see on the channel. The hobby has changed a little bit over the last year. The huge explosion of multi-rotors and things that we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years that's driven the growth of a lot of the later channels that came into places like YouTube talking specifically about multi-rotors, quadcopters, things like Betaflight is really starting to slow down. In fact, looking at the data from my channel, one of the areas in the world that's really growing hugely at the moment is India and places like that, where the drone technology has become so cheap and available now that those guys are all jumping into the hobby. So a lot of the questions that I get, and you'll notice I try and respond to every question that I get, and I read every comment that's posted on every single one of my videos. There's over 1,000 videos on the channel now. They're all organized into playlists, and it's great how everybody's figured out that that's the best way to access the content. But those comments, an awful lot of them now, are coming from the Indian continent and from those areas. So looking out into 2019, what am I interested in doing? Well, for me, this is a hobby, and it's always going to be a hobby. This channel's been going for a very long time, and I came through it through fixed wing and initially helicopters into multi-rotors, got completely absorbed and obsessed with multi-rotors, and over the past couple of years has kind of built out back into fixed wing, particularly as flight controllers, and now much more supportive of things like fixed wing. But for me, 2019 is carrying on some of the themes that I don't think we've really explored enough as a hobby as we swing back around in the world of multi-rotors from the 5-inch quadcopter frenzy that's been driving the hobby for the last 2 or 3 years. First thing for me is going to be all about endurance. Now, I've done a number of builds over the past 5 or 6 months, putting bigger props on motors designed for higher battery voltages and using them with things like 3 and 4S and getting some amazing flight times. I am going to be doing more with lithium ion on those builds as well. And the interesting thing we found out last year was when I built the 7-inch quad and the 10-inch quad, didn't actually really get any appreciable increase in flight time, and that's because the additional frame and weight needed to support a 10-inch build meant that the efficiency that you gained by using 10-inch props was kind of all soaked up by that additional weight, so there wasn't really a benefit. So for me, 7-inch is kind of a really nice sweet spot that gives you really long flight times. So we'll continue to look at that. I've got some great lithium ion batteries in here that I want to play with. We'll be popping those on, and I'll be talking about the things you need to do to quadcopters to use lithium ion batteries. Lithium ion don't have huge current capacities, so you have to be a bit careful about that and not put them on 5-inch racing quads. But if you're cute about the way that you use them and you use high performance 18650 cells, you can get some seriously long flight times. I'll also, of course, be looking at the latest technology as it comes out. Already aware of some fantastic frames that are due out this year. We're really getting into some wonderfully exotic, beautifully simple frames and moving away from all of those pieces that we started out with, the QAV 250s and those kind of things are very much behind us. So I'll continue to look at those and cameras, FPV gear, DVR technology, video transmitters, flight controllers, new features in flight controller software, things like Betaflight, but not only things like Betaflight, things like the Vector, things like iNav, and those things as they develop as well. I'll be doing more with fixed wing. Now, fixed wing is one of those things that a lot of my friends who came into the hobby through multi-rotors have got into and are having a fantastic amount of fun with. And I don't think that's just unique to those guys. I think fixed wing flying, while not necessarily being for everybody, is a fantastic way to fly. Very different experience from a quadcopter. And I want to do more about that, including videos about things to be aware of when you're flying a fixed wing versus flying a quad. One simple example is in a quadcopter, when you're flying along, you realize that you're below the treetop that you want to go over the top of, you just blip the throttle and the quad rises and you clear the obstacle. In a fixed wing model, it's flying in the direction that you're looking. So blipping the throttle, all that's going to do is get you smashed into the obstruction a little bit faster. So ideally what you want to do is actually increase the throttle, but also pull back on the elevator to make the nose rise so that you fly over the top. But that's just one example of the things you have to be aware of. So I'm keen to do a lot of videos around that, and also continue to look at those kind of gateway drugs and series to help those of you that are in quadcopter land who may have invested all the technology already get into other parts of the hobby that are fantastic fun and actually can be an awful lot cheaper than quads as well, and you can get flight times measured in hours as opposed to minutes and seconds. I will also be spending time in there looking at flight controllers as well. I did that video around Christmas time where we put the Mini Vector into the Dart XL. Fantastic model and a fantastic flight controller, because the Vector is very simple to easy setup, and for those people that don't understand all the vagaries of how to navigate something like a Betaflight or iNav interface, it's very simple to do. But I'll continue to do those things through the year, expecting more flight controllers to come out specifically for fixed wing with higher amperages to run things like servos, and as those come out I'll stick them in models and we'll see how they perform. Obviously we'll do tips and tricks on the setup. Don't forget, I've got videos talking about wing setup for quadcopters. That's part of that kind of helping people move across, and also tips and tricks of how to make your fixed wing model easier to fly. I'll be continuing to look at radio technology. It's been an interesting year last year. I think the fantastic radios that we've got from people like FrSky or FreeSky and running the OpenTX operating system, I've started to become a little bit samey in my humble opinion. The OpenTX interface needs a bit of investment to make it simpler for newer pilots to use. It's still far too complicated in my opinion. That complexity is great. It allows the radios to do anything. Got probably a couple of hundred videos on OpenTX in those 1,000 odd videos on the channel, but for a lot of people that's just too complicated. They want a simple way to set things up. Things like a much more verbose setup wizard in OpenTX would be great. Also, FrSky, I think, need some competition now just in the radio world. I know Jumper has tried, but the almost monopolistic position that FreeSky and OpenTX have in the hobby as a whole, I think it's time that we saw some other people get into the hobby and give those guys a run for their money. I think that's better for the hobby as a whole, but also for FreeSky and OpenTX individually and together is work on making us better radios that are far easier to use, that are cheaper to buy as well. Going to be looking at FPV, of course. I love FPV. My Fat Shark HDO goggles are still my go-to goggles out of all the ones that I get here. Just giving away a few sets of goggles over Christmas to Patreons, and I'm looking forward to getting some new stuff in so that I can continue to test that out. I don't think the small compact binocular goggle anyone's really come up to and producing anything that's close to the Fat Shark quality. Hopefully this is going to be the year, but I'm sure that Fat Shark haven't been resting on their laurels, so let's hope that 2019 we get to see some really great FPV goggles that's modular in the same way that we love in Fat Sharks, both from Fat Shark and other people as well. So it's going to be an interesting couple of months, I think, as we start to see what's coming out, because we haven't seen anything from Fat Shark for a while. So hopefully that means they've been working away on something, and we also haven't really seen a good set of compact goggles from the other manufacturers for a little while as well. So hopefully they're going to come round on that again, and hopefully third or fourth time lucky. I'm also going to spend more time looking at FPV cameras. Pretty much all the modern FPV cameras these days perform really well. We're starting to get into some nuance and personal preference now, and also the fact that you can do widescreen, 4:3, you can flip them, NTSC, you can adjust all the settings very easily. We've seen some real innovation over the last couple of months with things like gesture controlled VTXs and cameras. And I like the idea of having systems that don't need a flight controller, and you can set them up quite easily without having to dig around in the middle of your model and kind of press a button and squint at some LEDs that are changing on the top, trying to figure out which is the channel that you're trying to aim for. While we're talking about FPV, I'm going to do some more about FPV basics, a little bit on the 2.4, and I'm going to be spending over the next week some time down with Menace RC. I did a video over Christmas talking about the impact of putting your antenna inside a TPU shroud. In fact, it's not just TPU, there's lots of other impacts as well, and it's a proportional thing. It's almost a linear relationship between how far the active elements of your antenna are embedded in the material to the effect that it has. Things like what SWR actually mean and how it all works, and the real world impact is something that Menace RC has kindly agreed to test with me. So I'm going to get loads of my antennas down here. Greg from Menace has loads as well, and we're going to basically put them on all of his super duper test rig. We'll look at the effect of the actual shape of reception when you put that material around it, and I'm also going to take some FR Sky antennas for the receivers as well, and we'll put things like heat shrink and also cable ties that we all use these days to protect them out on the arms to see what effect it actually has on the reception too. Even a small shift in how well the antennas are tuned can make a massive impact on the performance of your FPV flight. And interestingly, looking at some of the initial test data, we've just been talking over Skype over the last day or two, trying to figure out exactly what we'll have a chance to do in the time that I get to go down there, is that some of the antennas are not very well tuned for the 5.8 band they're supposed to work on straight out the box. So I'm intrigued to see how that all works. So anyway, stay tuned. There's going to be loads of RF stuff coming in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully I'm going to be able to kind of dumb it down to the level that means that everybody watching can understand it, but not too far, so that all the people who actually understand radio antenna technology, people like me who've maybe gone and done the amateur radio certification stuff, don't get completely upset with me by dumbing it down too much so it's not actually technically accurate. It's a bit of a fine line, that one, but I'll do my best to explain it. I might have a kind of a simple version and then a full version. And then finally, I'll be doing more basics too, more things about the hobby. But one of the things I really want to ask you, my subscribers and viewers, are what do you want to see in 2019? I've very quickly gone through the things that I've got on my list and things that I'm thinking about, but this is as much your channel as it is mine. I do this because I love the hobby and I like playing with technology. But if there's something that you're particularly interested, or things that you've tried to find on the channel that aren't there, then please do let me know. Pop a comment down below. This is an opportunity for me to get all this feedback and maybe order it into a list and get you guys to vote on the list, and then I can work through all those topics through the next 6-8 months as well, just making sure that you have everything you need to get started. So thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video. Thank you again for taking the time to watch these videos that I make here. It's always amazing how many people spend time and effort watching and commenting on these videos that I just make here, playing around with the technology. But please do let me know what you'd be interested in looking at, and let's all have a fantastic, safe 2019. Thanks for watching the video and watching right to the very end. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you like the video and like what I'm doing here, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon too. If you really like what I'm doing, you can go the extra mile and become one of my Patreons for access to me directly for support, and also giveaways and regular updates too. If you're looking for particular content, then check out the playlist. I organize all of my videos into playlists, so if you're looking for a particular topic, you can find everything here. If it's called Introduction To, it's designed to start very simply and build on that simple introduction to teach you all about it. If it's called For Beginners, then that is really aimed at people who are brand new to that part of the hobby. You can also search on YouTube for anything that you're interested in using the search function at the top. So iNav Painless 360 will find all of my videos and even the playlist around iNav. So thanks again for watching, and happy flying.